What's up, fight fans? Thank you so much for joining us once again here on HYFNTV. I'm Kyle Dyer, and we are here to talk about what we just saw on UFC Fight Night this past Saturday. A huge heavyweight fight with big title implications, and also a welterweight former championship contender that looks like he may be back to form. All that and more coming up right here on the HYFNTV Combat Sports Report. Fight night last Saturday was at the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida, and it was a wild night, packed full of action with 13 fights, including a heavyweight clash with big title implications, as we saw number 5 contender Sergey Pavlovich taking on number 4 Tai Tuivasa. These two monsters wasted absolutely no time, as mere seconds into the fight, they began and met near the middle of the octagon, where Pavlovich struck with a huge right hand that stunned Tuivasa. After a big exchange, both fighters landed big shots and then briefly reset, but Pavlovich very shortly after that struck again, where he sat Tuivasa down with a stiff left jab. Tuivasa regained his composure and was able to stand back up, but at that point the damage was already done. Pavlovich put the pedal to the metal and poured on the strikes, catching Tuivasa again, this time with a right uppercut, which folded Tuivasa, forcing him to cover up on the mat. A few hard shots on the ground, and referee Dan Mergliotta called an end to the fight just inside of 1 minute of action, completing the impressive TKO win for Pavlovich. This fight was interesting because we saw Tuivasa get exposed a little bit. This was his 3rd fight of the year, and one has to wonder if it was smart for Tai to be that active against some of the best heavyweights in the division. He beat Derek Lewis back in February, but he ate some huge shots in that fight. And in the fight game, that really matters. Your chin can only take so much, and while he was able to wear those shots and win the fight, you have to wonder if they affected him the rest of the year. The loss to Cyril Gane was a TKO in which he took even more punishment. This was back in September. And then he turned around just 3 months later and took this fight with the hard-hitting newcomer Pavlovich and gets finished in under a minute in the first round. Tai has to get he's got to take some time off and not only let himself recover physically, but also figure out how to develop his game past just being an exciting knockout artist. He just throws huge bombs all the time. That's okay, when you're fighting guys in the back end of the division, but at the top of any division, you can only rely on your power alone so much, and that's why I think we saw Tai get dealt with so quickly by Pavlovich and then also by Gane. He needs to start developing a jab and allow himself to set those power shots up and learn how to use distance and movement to his advantage. Now, speaking of Cyril Gane, that is the only fight that I think there is to make right now for Sergey Pavlovich. He's been extremely impressive during all of his fights since his debut, and he needs to be in the title discussion right now at this moment. The UFC needs to waste no time in setting a date, maybe in May or June, for Cyril Gane and Pavlovich to fight, and they're going to fight for the right to face the winner of Francis Ngannou and John Jones, assuming that fight happens. If either one of those fighters drops out, I think Sergey Pavlovich has to be the one that steps in to pick up that title shot. Cyril Gane, number 1 contender. He's done a lot. He just fought for the title last year, though, or not last year, it was back in January, against Francis Ngannou. That's when the knee injury occurred and all this. But I think Pavlovich has done enough to really to be in that title conversation. And if somebody drops out of that fight, he's got to go right in, and then maybe Cyril Gane is the guy that gets the shot over who wins that fight. So let's take a look at the main event. Fight night wrapped up with a highly anticipated matchup in the welterweight division as number 6 contender Stephen Wonderboy Thompson took on Kevin Trailblazer Holland. Normally in MMA, the mood goes one of two ways. Either there's an animosity or trash talk between the two fighters, and you can cut the tension with a knife in the octagon, or the fighters are stoic and respectful, letting their skill do the talking. This fight was a little bit of an outlier that didn't fall into either of those categories, as two of the nicest guys in the promotion, Thompson and Holland, spent most of the whole week broing it up, saying nice things about each other and joking every chance that they got. This actually came out in the octagon as well. We were treated to an incredible show, the highest level martial arts striking that was mostly a collection of long exchanges, at the end of which Holland and Thompson would smile at each other and high five before beginning again. Holland narrowly won the first round after stinging Wonderboy with a straight right that had him in danger of being finished, but Thompson was able to recover and make it to the horn. After that point, though, Thompson settled in and looked like he has found the fountain of youth as he was sniping like the Wonder Boy of old, using quick, precision strikes and long creative combinations with huge power kicks. We talked last week about the path to victory for Holland being on the mat with ground and pound and submissions, and there were 2 times during this fight when I was screaming at my TV, completely baffled by the fact that Holland threw Thompson to the mat, and instead of jumping in and trying to make it a ground fight, Holland inexplicably stepped back and let Thompson get back up and continue the fight on the feet. And this proved to be a fatal error as Holland blocked a spinning heel kick from Thompson, which broke his right hand, and at that point, it was obvious that the hand was severely compromised to the point where Holland was uncomfortable even throwing any strikes with it, and Thompson took advantage, pressing Holland, landing vicious punches and head kick after head kick. That 4th round was extremely difficult to watch, with at many points it looked like Holland was on the verge of being knocked out or stopped by TKO, but you really got to give him credit. This guy's got a granite chin and a warrior's will that held up until the end when he got to the end of the 4th round. However, that would have been the end of the fight. After a short conversation with his fighter, Coach Bob Cook smartly threw in the towel and saved Holland from being subjected to any additional damage. It's going to be interesting to see at this point what the UFC does with Thompson moving forward. He's recently lost to 2 of the guys in the top 5 of the welterweight division, and while a title bout versus his fellow striker and champion, Leon Edwards, would be a dream matchup, Thompson hasn't done enough to jump the guys in front of him and justify booking that fight. Unfortunately for Wonder Boy, I think he's probably going to have to fight behind him again. Maybe someone like Jeff Neal, Sean Brady, Vicente Luque, who are 7, 8, and 9 in the division respectively. Holland, on the other hand, is a little bit harder to predict. His hand was badly broken, as reports are that he broke the 3rd, 4th, and 5th metacarpals, which are the middle and 2 outside bones in your hand. They said that this is going to be something that needs surgery to repair, so he's going to be on the shelf for a while. And Holland also briefly contemplated retirement after he was submitted by Khamzat Chimaev in a fight that he took in short notice back in September. So who knows if he even comes back to the octagon at all. This is not a sport that you can coast by and earn paychecks if your heart isn't in it. And I'm not saying Holland does that or is doing that. You can see by the way he fights. He's in every single fight 100%, throwing and talking and having a good time and doing everything that he needs to do from a standpoint of fighting. But this is not something that, if he's having those feelings of possibly wanting to retire, really need to take that introspective look and take this time not only to heal, but also take a good inward look at himself and decide whether he wants to go on moving forward in the fight game. He's extremely talented, but he's gotten into his own way in some fights, especially in this one, where I don't think that he had the best game plan to come out on top. I appreciate him wanting to showcase his own striking against one of the best in the business. You can't let your ego, though, or desire to be a great showman stand in your way of winning fights. And I don't mean that in a bad way or as a knock on Kevin Holland, but to me, there was a better way to approach this fight, and simply he let an opportunity slip through his fingers. Now, let's take a look and see how the rest of the night shook out. The night kicked off in the women's strawweight division as Yasmin Warigi defeated Estela Nunez via 2nd round TKO. In the featherweight division for the men, Francis Marshall defeated Marcelo Rojo via 2nd round TKO. In the men's lightweight division, Natan Levy defeated Genaro Valdez by a unanimous decision. The women's weight division was supposed to have number 13 Tracy Cortez versus number 15 Amanda Ribas. This was canceled, unfortunately, due to a medical issue for Cortez. It was not specified what that medical issue was. There's some rumors going around on the internet of what it could be. I won't speculate on that here, as they are just rumors, but could be something interesting if it is true. She is going to be out for close to a year if it's the case, but we won't delve into that without any confirmed reports of anything. Next on the bill, though, was a featherweight bout for the men. Jonathan Pierce defeated Darren Elkins by a unanimous decision in an extremely bloody fight. Elkins had a cut open up on the outside of his eye to the point where he was wearing the proverbial crimson mask, to borrow a professional wrestling term. This is Jonathan Pierce actually threw up after the fight due to the amount of Darren Elkins' blood that he swallowed. So a very brutal fight. Don't watch that one with your mom. She won't let you watch MMA anymore. Lightweight bout was up next. Michael Johnson defeated Mark Takise via unanimous decision. Next up, the ageless wonder in the lightweight division, Clay Guida, defeated Scott Holtzman via split decision. Next, we had a women's strawweight bout, which ended up being the de facto featured prelim of the evening. Number 12, Angela Hill, defeated number 13, Emily Ducote via unanimous decision. And due to time constraints, Phil Rowe and Nico Price in the welterweight division was elevated to the main card. Phil Rowe knocked Nico Price out in the third round. In the middleweight division, we saw Eric Anders defeat Kyle Dacus via TKO in the second round. Next was a middleweight bout. Roman Dolidze defeated number 8, Jack Hermanson via TKO in the second round. Very interesting. Roman Dolidze, this is a guy to watch. He's somebody that I could absolutely see challenging for the middleweight championship at some point in his career. Maybe not now, but in the next couple of years, get a couple more fights going. This guy is incredible. He took this fight on short notice. He wasn't even supposed to be in the United States. He stuck around after his fight where he knocked out Phil Hawes just about a month ago to help train his fellow countryman, Sergey Spivak, who was supposed to fight Derek Lewis. That fight ended up getting canceled. However, somebody dropped out of this fight here. The UFC needed a quick fill-in. Roman Dolidze said, hey, I'm in shape. I didn't take any damage this last fight. I don't have a medical suspension, anything like that. They put him in there, and all he does is go out there and beat the number 8 guy in the division. This is a guy to watch. Definitely remember that name, Roman Dolidze. Next, of course, we had one of our featured fights, the heavyweight bout. Number 5, Sergey Pavlovich defeated number 4, Tai Tuivasa via first-round knockout. Men's flyweight division was up next. We had number 6, Matthias Nicolau, defeating number 7, Matt Schnell via second-round TKO. And the co-main event of the evening was in the men's welterweight division. Number 7, Rafael Dos Anjos, defeated Brian Barberena via submission due to rear naked choke in the second round. And of course, the main event of the evening, number 6 in the welterweight division, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson defeated Kevin Holland via fourth round corner stoppage TKO. And that's it for us today on the Combat Sports Report. Remember, you can always catch us live on HYFNTV, but if you miss us live, no worries. Look for us, HYFNTV.com on demand or your Roku device for all of your up-to-date, your latest MMA news and international, the whole fight game. You can find it here at HYFNTV.com. Now, don't miss us later on this week. We are going to preview UFC 282, which is Magomed Ankalaev versus Jan Blachowicz for the highly anticipated light heavyweight championship matchup. We've also got fan favorite Paddy Pimblett fighting on that card and more. Don't miss it. Check us out later on this week on HYFNTV.com. As always, again, I'm Kyle